Soon my friend comes up from behind that mountain, and this huge thing, the size of a house and shaped like a disc, rises up. He said it was dark so he couldn't see the color, but it seemed to be silver and full of little red windows. He said it looked like there was a fire inside, a strong light, something hot in there. And then...
We're here in São Tomé das Letras, my friend here. Pepe Chaves has been living here since 2017, right? And this unidentified flying object researcher who had a website called Ufovia, he had the first contact with Sergeant Rabello from the Claudio case. So that's why I'm here to make it clear that the first ufologist to have contact with the Claudio case was Pepe Chaves. So, Pepe, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I wanted you to tell me back then your memories about this case, Claudio.
Yes, the Ufovia portal still exists, right? Ufovia and Vifanzino, both launched in 2004, have long been active in the cultural and ufological field, sharing this type of information. So, back then, I had a friend who worked at the Claudio City Council, and this guy told me, hey, something incredible happened here. Maybe the person doesn't want to talk to you, but I'll give you the contact and you can try to talk to them. So he and I got in touch with Hamilton Rabello,
Hamilton José Rabelo, Corporal Rabelo.
Corporal Rabello, and at first he didn't want to talk, right? Because due to his commitment to the institution, he could get involved in this and it wouldn't be good. But then, a few days later, coincidentally, he retired and then he got in touch with me saying, look, now I can talk. And that's when I did an interview with him where he shared some details, right? And it was also about his perspectives, what he thought it was. And through this interview, which was done after I had already made 2 attempts, right? Gathering data from the case the way I could at the time, without his help. And then he talked, and it was really interesting, right? He really believes that they are beings from another planet, you know? And that contact would have been something like that, already foreseen, right? And I even asked him, look, interview. If he thought it was strange that just a few days later he went into the reserves. He also said he thought that was strange, right? Because he had such a terrifying experience. After that, he would already be in the reserves,
So was his placement in the reserves intentional, or could there be another explanation? Normally,
it could be a coincidence, right? Like a coincidence that he stepped away afterwards, right? But we don't know, right? It's hard to say if it was something, if they already knew, right? That he was going to go into the reserves and all, but that's how it was. About a week later, he went into the reserves.
And I remember that the Ufobia portal, they published 2 articles about this subject. One was an interview with him, and the other was a more general article, which even included 3 photographs that Corporal Rabello had taken of the object, right?
So he gave us those photos then, right? In each one, we made a small enlargement of the light inside the photo, right? So I even asked him, during the interview, if he thought that light was just a detail, right? For example, it could be the light here, the object is huge, right? But when you listen, you only see the light, so like that. He couldn't clearly explain either if he thought the whole light was the object or if the light was just a detail of the object, right? So we can't really tell from those photos, since it's a dark background with a light, if that light was the whole object or just a detail of the object that was hidden in the darkness.
So Claudio's 2008 case was truly impactful. After that time, did you hear about anything else there in Claudio or in neighboring cities like Itaúna, Oliveira, Divinópolis?
Yes, I'm from Itaúna, right? So it's more or less close to Claudio. Both cities are in the Midwest region. Itaúna has always had some cases, including a recent one you might have heard about, a light appearing at the dam.
That was in the rural area, a little light that was filmed there.
And at the dam, man, there's a huge history that I researched there, including the landing of a flying saucer. There's even a video, I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I don't remember that. Can you tell us about this case?
I'll send it later. Actually, there are 2 cases. In 1969 at the dam, there were 2 friends fishing there. One was Nico Viana and the other was Claudio Nogueira, both very well known in the city. Claudio was a dentist and Nico was an industrialist. Nico was even my mother's uncle. So they were fishing there at the dam on an embankment that's there, and suddenly one was about 50 meters away from the other. One shouted, "Hey, did you see something coming down the mountain ahead of them?" He said he didn't see anything. He mentioned it looked like a light or a plane came down, but the other person didn't see it. Should I keep going? When they least expect it, they hear on that mountain a dog crying and barking, like it had been beaten a lot, you know? The dog was crying and crying. What's going on? That dog showed up there barking and crying, right? And they got really curious about it. Later, my friend appears from behind the mountain, and a massive disc-shaped object as big as a house rises up. He said it was too dark to see the color, but it looked silver with many small red windows. He said it looked like there was a fire inside, a strong light, something hot inside, and that thing was rising up like this, in the shape of a disc. They got scared even though they expected it. It moved, made a maneuver, went vertical, and vanished like a rocket into space. At that moment, they dropped everything there, ran away as fast as they could, got in the car, and left. You understand? So,
In this case, the fishing ended there.
yeah, that ended the fishing.
And another case,
This case is on our channel, right?
on Fovea,
Via Fanzine on YouTube, and then the other one. It's curious, Edson, because it was exactly 10 years later, 10 years later.
so 79.
First was 69, second 79. And coincidentally, in this case, there was someone who was also a relative of mine, my cousin, the daughter of my mother's brother. The first one was my mother's uncle, the brother of my mother's mother. In this one, there was the daughter, who was about 12 years old at the time, and her little friend, also the same age. With the couple they were with in the car at that couple's farm, and they were coming back in the same area near the dam, in a place very close to that other sighting, and from a distance they saw a light and said, "There's a strange light up ahead." Near Agua Viva, a well-known mineral water source in Itaúna, Brazil, close to where the water is extracted. And they saw that light from afar and kept getting closer and closer. Then he said to his wife, "That light isn't here." And she said, "Look, it's right above us." When they looked, there was a huge light above the car, right above them. He said he went into a trance, opened the car door, and got out despite them screaming at him to stop. He ignored them, acting like he didn't see them, then closed the car door and left. She was by the side of the road next to a fence, and he crossed that fence and walked under the light. He walked under the light, kept looking at it, while the girls screamed and cried. And he said like this, "Pepe, when I was there, his name is Tibinho, he was an employee, his name is Helder, I forgot his last name. His father, the mayor of Itaúna, is also well known there, so he said, Pepe, checklist, preserve speaker's perspective, maintain all proper names, events, shortened by up to 24%, ensure grammatical accuracy, shorten text. While I was under the light, it kept getting warmer. Then he came back, you know? He came back without knowing what it was, got in the car, and drove away like crazy. The girls were crying, the boys were crying, he just left that thing there. And further ahead, he ran into a group of armadillo hunters and their dogs. He said, "Guys, I saw something over there." They replied, "Don't worry, that's the mother of gold. She's always around here." That's all they said. So, those are two cases that happened there at the dam, but there's a long history. There are other things I've heard about too. Less amazing than that one.
And you personally, have you ever seen it?
I have seen it.
How was your sighting?
I've seen it a few times. The first time led me to ufology. It was that first sighting. Since I was 5, I got into ufology because it was so strange. I saw a rounded object with a flat base and haven't seen reports like it since. A half moon, like a stretched half moon, stretched out, long.
Like a bell?
It's like a bell with a straight base and a rounded base. That was the front, and here I was passing over my house, there in Tauno. At 5, I yelled for my mom to look at something moving in the sky, but she just said no, as usual. Mom said she doesn't know about these things. It's just a shooting star or something. Then the next day, man, it was all over the Minas Gerais press. In several cities, it was so high that several cities saw it. You know, it was in all the newspapers. My mom wished she'd seen it, right?
How old were you? 7 or 5? What year were you born?
Was it in 64?
It was a very eventful year.
Yeah, it was in Brazilian oncology. In fact, I've talked to other people who must have seen the same thing. You know, years later, from other places.
Did you see anything else, or was that it?
There was this really crazy case, which is the one I told you about. I mentioned it to you in our conversation, and honestly, I don't know what really happened. There was a guy from Itaúna who wasn't a normal person. He went after one of my friends back then. This was in the 80s, around the mid 80s. He asked the newsstand guy who was buying Planeta magazine, the only unidentified flying object magazine available then. The newsstand guy pointed to my friend who always bought Planeta magazine, which covered many topics, including ufology. Then, he told this friend of mine that there was a place in the Garcias neighborhood, an Itaúna neighborhood there in Itaúna, where UFOs always appeared, and that if he went there, he was sure they would appear. He convinced us to go with him, so 5 of us, me, this friend, and 2 more of his friends, rode in a little beetle to get there. So there we are, we're there in a high place like that on a dark night. Everything that was a plane seemed obvious to him, so we started doubting and thought he was mistaken. He kept identifying every plane, saying, "Oh, that's this, that's that," while I pointed out, "It's just a plane, look, it even has a wheel." We were already skeptical, and suddenly we were high up. I saw some lights moving in the treetops above the stream below, like this, look. Spinning. Imagine this, several people with flashlights spinning them upwards, towards the treetops, and going down the stream. I said, "Guys, that's a probe and all. I was really excited about it, you know?" I dropped them and ran. My friend Humberto, also called Beto, followed me, telling himself, "Calm down, Beto, calm down." And it was dark, you know? There was no trail, nothing. I went right through the bushes. No, man, I've always wanted to see this. I want to see this. Now, we're going to meet up with them. They're coming this way. We're going this way. We're going to meet them at a certain place. And we went. I was all pumped up with adrenaline, man. When you get close to the lights come like this, 4 lights, as if they were people, right? With flashlights. And when we get closer,
They looked like some people carrying flashlights.
they had flashlights, but were in the stream. Why would they shine the light upward when it was higher up? Then someone just said, "Hey."
It was like a glowing person,
No, it wasn't 4 people like humans.
fishing with something luminous in their hand.
With a flashlight in their hand, a flashlight. Then we said, "Man, those guys were there fishing, right?" So, sometime later, I got kind of intrigued. I thought, man, but if those guys were fishing, why were all 4 of them side by side in the stream with flashlights in their hands? And why, when we were up there, were those lights there, you know? So, it was something that really got to me more afterwards than at the time. At the time, I was sure it was us fishing down there, but later I had doubts. Could we have been tricked into thinking they were fishermen, and was something else really happening? How did we get so close, right? That took on a human appearance, which would make more sense. People fishing, but the stream only came up to our shins, you know? So fishing there would be kind of difficult. That was an interesting time too.
Interesting. So since 1969, Pepe has already seen this phenomenon, right? He's been following the phenomenon here in São Tomé as well.
I saw a triangle, but it wasn't like usual triangles. It looked like this. Look, there was a light in the front that was weaker than the ones in the back instead of one on each corner. There were 3 in the back, 1 here, 1 in the middle, and another here. So these 3 in the back were strong. This one here was weaker, and I was passing by.
At its tip, this one was weaker at its tip.
It's like I'm going from São Paulo to Belo Horizonte above Fernão Dias with São Tomé ahead and 3 bright lights behind and 1 dimmer light in front. I researched everything and found nothing like that. I even think it could be a drone, maybe military. She mentioned it.
When was that?
That was in 2018. My wife was here. I called and shouted and she came running. When she arrived, you could already see the 3 in the back, one on top of the other as she lay down like this. You know, the one in front here and the 3 in the back? When she saw it, she couldn't see the one in front anymore. She saw the 3 in the back, one on top of the other, and they were already far away. So that was really interesting too.
So you see, for example, those of us who have been researching for a long time, every now and then, we end up finding or seeing something different related to this unidentified flying object phenomenon. And what do we notice here? Also, the Central West region of Minas, Itaúna, Circo Vizinhança, Divinópolis, Cláudio Oliveira, that area has had many unidentified flying object cases that have occurred over many decades. Now, since you've been in this field for quite some time, we start to come up with some hypotheses, some conjectures. For you, Pepe, what do you think they are?
Look, it's still difficult to say. I try to find out, try to understand, but I'm a very down to earth person, you know, Edson. So I try to check if all the possibilities of it being something terrestrial are exhausted, and only when they're exhausted, then we consider something extra. So, at first, I think a lot of things can be caused by confusion itself. Do you understand now, that thing at the dam? I found it interesting because something happens and then 10 years later it seems to be the same thing, you know? So, like that. If they really are extraterrestrials, I think their sense of time is very different from ours, you know? For us, it was 10 years from 69 to 79, but for them, it could have been only minutes. And the idea that it could be the same object is just speculation. I can't say that for sure. So we keep thinking, making connections, synapses of possibilities, and that's one of them, that for some reason they're acting there at the dam. A man once told me he was biking there when he saw a flying saucer. He threw his bike into the sea and hid on the dam. That really happened, you know? He got really scared a while back. There are more cases like that there, right? Recently, there was a case of a light that was recorded there. I even received this video, but I couldn't talk to the person at the time. But it was a light that moved in a completely deserted place in that dam area. So it seems like something must attract them there, you know? There's that mineral water source, right? So there might be some kind of mineral, something that, if it really is extraterrestrial, is attracted there for some reason.
So that's it, folks. I wanted to thank Pepe for this information and keep supporting our work, our channel, and see you in the next video podcast live with Edison Boaventura. All right?